Amelia Farouk checked her phone, and her heart sank. Her bank balance stared back at her, just 0.83 rupees. Not even enough for a bottle of water. She sighed and slipped the phone back into her purse, her fingers brushing against the folded 100-rupee note she'd been saving for lunch. It wasn't much. But it was all she had. The sun scorched the Karachi pavement as she walked through Sadr Market, weaving through crowds of street vendors and old buses hissing with heat. Her interview was at 4 p.m. at Zenovatech, one of the fastest-growing fintech companies in the region. She'd barely slept, rehearsed her answers over and over, and pressed her single navy blue blazer under a pile of books so it would look less wrinkled. Amelia hadn't told her mother how bad things had gotten. After her father passed away last year, she'd sent everything she earned home. But with prices rising and her last marketing contract suddenly pulled, she was down to fumes. If she didn't land this job, she wasn't sure what she'd do. Her stomach growled, loud and sharp. She hadn't eaten since the night before. That 100-rupee note felt like gold. Just one small biryani or a paratha roll to help her stay focused. She spotted a white food truck parked just ahead with a long line in front of it. Painted on its side were 3 words, "Share a smile," and underneath, in smaller letters, "Pay what you can." Amelia blinked. She'd never seen this truck before. Behind her, someone muttered in frustration. She turned. A tall man in a sharp shirt was patting his pockets. No wallet. No phone. He looked genuinely embarrassed. "I'm so sorry," he said to the food truck worker. "I left my wallet in the hotel. I'll just come back later." The boy working the truck looked unsure. The line was growing, and behind him, more food trays were waiting to be handed out. Without thinking, Amelia stepped forward. "I've got it," she said quietly. The man looked at her, surprised. "What?" She smiled awkwardly. "Your lunch. I'll pay." He hesitated. "Miss, that's not necessary." "I know," she said softly. "But it's okay. Everyone forgets things sometimes." She turned and placed her 100 rupees on the counter. 2 biryanis. That was it. That was her whole day's money gone. Her fingers trembled slightly as she took the boxes. She handed one to the man without making eye contact. "Here," she mumbled. "Enjoy." And with that, she walked off to the side, sitting on a stone ledge under a tree. She opened the box. The warm smell of spiced rice filled the air, and she ate quietly, quickly. She didn't look back. She didn't need thanks. She just needed food to stop the ache in her belly so she could think straight during the interview. She didn't know the man was still watching her. Didn't see the way his eyes followed her, curious, thoughtful. She finished her lunch, drank from a nearby water fountain, and wiped her hands on a tissue. It wasn't much. But it helped. She checked the time, 3:10. She had less than an hour. The Zenovatech building was enormous. All glass and steel, rising out of the city like something out of another world. She entered, nerves buzzing, and gave her name at the reception. The woman behind the desk smiled and handed her a visitor badge. 21st floor, she said. Interview room is on the left. The elevator ride felt endless. Amelia tried not to fidget. She checked her hair in the mirrored walls, practiced breathing slowly. This was it. Everything she'd studied, worked for, sacrificed, she needed this job. When she entered the room, a panel of 4 people sat waiting. One woman from HR. A senior manager from marketing. A tech lead. And then, the man from the food truck. Her stomach dropped. He was seated at the center of the table, calm, collected, reviewing a folder. The HR rep stood up, smiling. "Amelia Farouk, welcome. We're so glad to have you here today. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Ethan Khan, Zenovatech's new CEO." Her mind spun. CEO. The man from the food truck was the CEO. She tried to keep her face still, her hands steady. He gave her a small smile, nothing more. No sign he even recognized her. The interview began. Questions were fired at her one after another: marketing strategies, growth ideas, How she would handle campaign setbacks. She answered as best she could, but inside, her heart raced. Had she embarrassed herself earlier? Did he think she was some desperate girl? Did he think she'd done it to get something? She glanced at him once. He was watching her, but not with judgment. With interest. And then he spoke. "Miss Farouk," he said, voice steady, "tell us about a time you took a risk. Something personal." She swallowed. I bought lunch for someone today," she said slowly. "With my last 100 rupees. I didn't know if I could afford it. But I did it anyway. Because I believe kindness comes back." There was silence in the room. The HR manager gave a tight smile, unsure if it was a joke. But Ethan simply nodded. "And do you believe that principle applies in business?" he asked. Amelia straightened. "Absolutely. I think good marketing builds trust. I think companies that give value, knowledge, empathy, always get more back. Loyalty, engagement, growth. People buy from those they believe in." Ethan looked around at the others. Interesting answer. They wrapped up shortly after. Amelia left the room on shaking legs. She walked out of the building, barely remembering how to breathe. Had she done enough? Had she ruined her chance? That night, as she sat at home, barely able to eat, her phone rang. It was Zenova Tech HR. She held her breath. "Miss Farouk," the voice said warmly. "We'd like to formally offer you the position." Mr. Khan was particularly impressed. "You'll be joining as senior marketing strategist starting Monday, with a full benefits package. Congratulations." She covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. She had done it. And just before the call ended, the HR woman added one last note. "Oh, and there's a note from Mr. Khan. He said to tell you, lunch is on him tomorrow. Don't bring money. Just bring your smile." The next morning, Amelia arrived 15 minutes early for her first day at Zenova Tech. Her heart fluttered with excitement, nerves, and something else she didn't want to name just yet. The receptionist gave her a warm nod and handed her a new badge with her name printed in silver letters. It felt surreal, like everything she'd been dreaming of for the last 6 months was finally taking shape. She'd made it. She was no longer invisible. But she wasn't expecting what came next. "Miss Farouk," said the receptionist, "Mr. Khan asked to see you as soon as you arrive. He's waiting on the rooftop cafe." She blinked. Rooftop cafe. Clutching her bag, she followed the private elevator up to the 24th floor. The doors opened to a beautiful terrace, draped in flowering vines and shaded by wide umbrellas. There were only 2 people there, Ethan Khan and a young assistant who silently placed 2 covered trays on the table before disappearing. Ethan turned as she stepped out. He wasn't wearing a suit today, just a light button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled, looking far more like the stranger from the food truck than the CEO of a major company. "Good morning, Amelia," he said, smiling. "Thought I owed you a proper meal." She couldn't help but laugh. "This is a bit more than biryani on a curb. Think of it as interest," he said playfully. "From a loan you never asked to be repaid." He pulled out a chair for her, and they sat down under the soft morning light. He uncovered the trays, aloo paratha, chai, and fresh mango slices. The kind of breakfast she hadn't had since childhood. "I hope you don't mind," he added. "I thought you might want to start your first day a little more human." She looked at him across the table, unsure what to say. So she simply whispered, "Thank you." For the next 30 minutes, they didn't talk about marketing or KPIs or quarterly goals. They talked about life. She told him about her mother, how she used to be a schoolteacher but had to stop working after her stroke. How Amelia had been supporting her since she was 19. How she came back from Dubai because home wasn't home without family. Ethan listened closely, the way people do when they're not waiting to speak, but genuinely hearing every word. And then he opened up too. He told her about his sister, Alina, the one who started the Share a Smile food truck concept years ago, before depression took her too soon. Ethan had promised to carry her legacy through simple kindness, through small moments that made the world gentler. "That food truck wasn't random," he said softly. "I go there sometimes when I miss her." That morning, I'd forgotten my wallet, but I think maybe I was meant to forget it. Meant to meet you. Amelia's throat tightened. She blinked rapidly to keep the emotion in. Maybe, she whispered, we both needed something that day. He nodded. You needed a break. I needed a reminder of why I do this. They didn't speak for a moment, letting the soft breeze and the sound of the city below fill the space between them. Then, Ethan stood. Walk with me. They strolled the perimeter of the rooftop, looking out over Karachi's vast skyline. He didn't reach for her hand, but something unspoken hung in the air, an understanding, a respect, a quiet admiration that neither of them could ignore. As the days turned into weeks, Amelia quickly made her mark on the marketing team. She brought fresh ideas, understood the local audience, and designed campaigns not just to sell, but to serve. Her most successful campaign was called Every Rupee Counts. A digital savings challenge for low-income earners that spread like wildfire across social media. Users felt empowered, seen, and included. Ethan made sure she had full creative control. And though they kept things professional in the office, after hours, they shared moments. A late-night strategy meeting that turned into rooftop stargazing. A cup of chai after a presentation that lasted hours longer than it should have. One evening, as they worked side by side in his office, a sudden thunderstorm broke out. The power flickered. Rain pounded the windows. She was halfway through explaining a new pitch when the room went dark. They both froze. Then the emergency lights kicked in, and she laughed nervously. Guess the universe wants us to take a break. Ethan smiled, pulling out his phone's flashlight. You're not scared, are you? Only a fumbling this campaign. You're not fumbling anything, Amelia. There was something in his voice, soft but certain. She turned to face him, and for a moment, the office walls, the titles, the roles, they all disappeared. I don't know what this is, she said honestly. But I don't want to pretend it's not real. He nodded, stepping closer. Neither do I. Then, gently, without hesitation, he kissed her. It was quiet. Simple. No grand declarations, no fireworks. Just two people who had walked into each other's lives at the exact right moment. And in that silence, Amelia knew, this was no longer just about a job. This was the start of something bigger. They didn't rush it. They stayed cautious. Careful. But it was real. More real than anything she'd ever known. Months passed. Her mother's treatment improved, fully funded by the new health initiative Ethan created for employees with family emergencies. He never said it was for her, but she knew. She saw it in the way he stood in the back during the announcement, letting others take credit. They kept their relationship private. But love has a way of revealing itself, in the smallest ways. The way he waited for her when everyone else left meetings. The way her name always seemed to come up when he talked about future leadership. And then, one day, at the company town hall, everything changed. Ethan called her up to the stage. I'd like you all to hear a story, he said, taking the microphone. It's a story about a young woman who had only 100 rupees left in her wallet, and chose to use it to buy a stranger lunch. Not because she knew who he was. But because kindness doesn't need to know the reward. The room fell silent. That stranger, he said, his voice catching slightly, was me. Gasps filled the crowd. Amelia stood frozen as 1,000 eyes turned to her. I was hungry. And I was alone. And what she gave me that day wasn't just food, it was hope. It was grace. It reminded me of why I built this company in the first place. And it reminded me of someone I loved. He turned toward her. And now, that same woman is one of the brightest minds in our company. A voice of integrity. A builder of stories. And someone I'm proud to have by my side, every day. The crowd erupted in applause. Amelia could barely breathe. Her hands shook. He stepped toward her, still holding the mic. I don't know if the world believes in fate. But I do. I believe in her. And then, softly enough that only she could hear, he whispered, I love you. Later, outside, under a glowing Karachi night, they stood alone by the fountain. She looked up at him, eyes wide. I still don't understand how a small act like that turned into all this. He held her hand gently. Because kindness always comes back. It just returns in a form we never expect. She smiled. You still owe me biryani, you know. He laughed. Always. Forever. And together, they walked off into the night, two people who believed in generosity, grace, and the quiet magic of moments that change everything. Red Heart voiceover outro, ending for Chapter 2. One act of kindness. One lunch. One last rupee. That's all it took to start a ripple that changed a life and created a love story. If this story warmed your heart, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Because you never know, your smallest kindness might just change someone's world.